Welcome to the Calgary Sessions. This is episode number 34. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. Today's guest, her and I go back a few years. It's been really cool to reconnect with her, so this will be a fun show. Go ahead, introduce yourself, name, and what you're up to.
Paula Worthington, founder and principal of Worthington PR Story.
Awesome. You and I go back to when I was still at FranWorks.
That's right.
You're working for a PR firm that kind of took care of the FranWorks business, and that's how we met. So that would have been, well, if it's been 12 years since I started there, that's kind of, yes, we kind of met right away. So
right then,
yeah, it's been a while.
Time flies.
Super fun. So yeah, the gist of the show, I just kind of let the guests go back as far as they want to go. I really don't know your backstory, so this will be pretty cool. And when I say go back, it's just to a point in time when you start kind of remembering, or there's things that are kind of leading you down different paths, whether it's family, school, work, sports, whatever it is. So just kind of go back to a time where things started to click for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Calgarian, born and raised.
Which is awesome.
Which I feel like there's a bunch of us, but it's rare at the same time. So yeah, born and raised in Calgary. So I've always had a real love affair for the city and for the business community here. So it was great to be able to be at a point in my life where I could start my own business here. I still have really good friends with the people I grew up with, and
from like elementary school.
Sure,
friends?
Yeah, preschool.
Mm-hmm.
So
it is strange though. Hey, there's not a lot of us that have those connections in this city.
Yeah, it's amazing, and even people that you grew up with, some of them, you know, we've stayed near and dear to each other that whole time, and others go out of your life and then come back in 10, 15 years later, but you're the same people, and it's a riot to kind of see what people are up to now.
Totally.
But yeah, I went to university here and then moved to Toronto for 4 years and kind of started my career there, and had a chance in that role to really travel the country. And so that kind of spurred in me a couple of things. As you know, we'll talk about this, but I love travel. So the last couple of years has been tough in that regard, but love exploring, love meeting new people. And then found my way back here. I really miss the mountains. I think the mountains are a great place for me to unplug and unwind and hang out with friends and family. And I really love the city. So yeah, I think it's funny when I think about what I do now, which is communications and entrepreneurship, that did really start early for me. I remember as a kid, it's kind of a funny story, not my entrepreneurial journey, but I remember my older sister had set up an Oreo stand with her friend. And I was like, that's pretty cool. They're going to make some money. And I ran over to kind of see what all the fuss was about. And like, well, this is kind of, they get to make money on a Saturday afternoon. And I was their first customer.
Did you have money?
I think I borrowed some from mom. And, but I was their only customer because I quickly ran back to our house to let the powers that be know that the girls were selling Oreos that the insides had been licked out of them.
Come on.
They were trying to sell. They were trying to con off the cookie to the little sister. So that was pretty priceless. But yeah, I think that for me, you know, my family, my dad was an English teacher his whole career, and he's a writer. And my mom is an artist. And so I think that idea of creativity and communicating has always been part of our family and part of growing up.
It's an interesting mix, though, with a creative person and the education piece on the other side.
Well, and my mom's a calligraphy artist, and I'm left-handed. So ink doesn't work for lefties because we smear it across the paper. So I had to find my own creative outlets. But I... When I was in my early 20s, I started traveling a lot, and I was in school and in university, but would kind of save up money from a summer job and grab a backpack and go travel somewhere.
What's that? Sorry, I'm going to just jump in wherever you're. That travel bug, to say you love traveling is such a foreign idea to me. I've never looked at travel as a goal or, something that I was interested in. It was never a thing, but I grew up with everybody, not everybody. There was that thing, you finish high school and you go on a trip.
Yeah.
You finish university, you go on a trip. You work for a summer, you save your money, go on a trip.
Yeah.
What is that? What's that thing inside of you that makes you, I love to travel?
I think what travel affords people is the joy of spontaneity. And I think over the last couple of years, that's where a lot of people are really aching in a way. You know, it's been Groundhog Day. People use that term over and over right now because it is. I think that's a coping mechanism too of, okay, I'm going to get up, I'm going to do these things. I'm going to be okay. The next day is the same. And I think when we travel, there's that discomfort a little bit of being in a new place and different food and different culture and a different language and maybe not knowing how you're getting to the next place. And if it's within your sphere of comfort, discomfort, there's a thrill that comes with that. There's adrenaline with travel. There's it immerses you in the moment. You're not always thinking what's happening tomorrow or what am I eating for dinner tonight. You're kind of entrenched in the moment and you're kind of using all of your senses. And I think that's always attracted me.
And when did you figure out? After high school, in high school, you're traveling, or when did the bug kind of start?
I think I kind of think back to a first overseas backpacking trip when I was 19. With a friend.
Okay.
And we went to France and Italy and Switzerland.
For how long?
About 3 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was a blast. We landed in Paris and we're probably a little bit outside of our comfort zone initially, and found our way through and had a lot of laughs, and then that just continued. So then I, to your point, just would work in the summer, save money, go somewhere else at the end of the summer before I went back to school. And this was when you had to go to an internet cafe to send an email. So I think too, it's almost too easy now because you're so accessible.
Yeah.
And at the time you had to, you'd have your journal and you'd go to the internet cafe and you'd go flip back through your journal and you'd write an email every couple of weeks to people know that you're okay and what you've been up to. And on one trip, people started sharing these emails that I would send through. And this is hilarious. Look what she's up to. And that particular trip, I was in Southeast Asia, and there was just like language barriers and food mishaps. And I can't believe I ate that. And I thought it was this. And so there was kind of funny things happening. And I was reading a lot of Bill Bryson at the time, who's kind of a humorist. And people started sharing these emails. And
did you put a lot of time and thought into these emails?
Oh, I'd sit in the internet cafe for
Why?
like 2 hours.
Why was that?
I just loved composing the story.
And did you know that before this happened?
No.
So like going through school, university, what like at that moment in time, you didn't figure out writing and telling stories was a thing?
I think I knew I enjoyed it, but I never thought of it as a thing. Yeah. So internet cafes weren't expensive, right?
Yep.
Spend $5 and sit there for 2 hours.
Still though, that's like, to go hammer out a well thought out email is something different.
Yeah. And it's great because I can go back and look at them now too, all these years later. But
are they good?
No.
Were they good to the audience because you were young?
No, they're okay. They're okay. But I look back now, I'm like, I know what I was trying to say there, and I probably could have said it a bit differently, But that's what you do. You go back and you self-critique forever. And so then I'd get back from a trip and bump into somebody. Oh, well, I got forwarded people I didn't know necessarily. Oh, I got shared your email. I know your mom and she sent this. And then, and I kind of thought, people are really reading these. And so kind of flash forward.
What year was that ish?
This would have been about 2001.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the internet's still like kind of new. It's like 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And anyway, came back and started my career, and I was traveling a lot for work at the time. And so
career in what?
I was working for an organization called Enactus, which is an entrepreneurial organization on university campuses. So I was working out of Toronto, but I was working with the universities to set up this entrepreneurship program.
So good. So I want to go back.
Yeah.
I want to go back to when you were saying you were working to make money to go traveling. What were your first jobs?
Oh, I had great jobs.
And what age did they start? And rattle me through a few.
Okay, so my very first job with a paycheck, outside of babysitting, was at the Calgary Stampede.
Doing?
I was an usher at the stage where they used to hold talent and pig races.
No way.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay.
So this is my first kind of customer experience role.
Yep.
Yeah, and my recollection of that is you had to buy, for some reason, the uniform, you had a golf shirt, and then you had to wear red jeans for some reason. And this is in the 90s. This is before you could go buy jeans in every single color. So you had to go buy white jeans and then go to the drugstore and buy like the red fabric dye and get the big pot out.
Crazy. And
dye your jeans red. And which was great until like the first, those flash rainstorms that happen, usually day 3, day 4 of Stampede. And you're wearing white sneakers and everything turns pink. And on you go. But
crazy.
So that was a great experience though. Working at the Stampede, I worked there for a couple summers.
Yep.
I worked at a golf course, beverage cart.
Which one?
Valley Ridge.
Okay.
And that also honed my golf skills, which is great and a lot of fun. I worked
like summertime. So summertime, your kind of job time.
Yeah, summertime jobs.
School. You were just
U of C.
Yep.
During the year.
So you just focused on school.
Yeah.
And what were you taking at U of C?
Communications.
Okay. So you knew right away?
Go.
Did you know coming out of high school what you wanted to do?
I had a pretty good idea.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
And what were you seeing that could that got you there? Like that you knew that what you wanted was actually a thing?
I decided when I started going to university that in my first year, I took a whole bunch of different classes, and I decided that I better focus on and pay attention to what I'm really enjoying and what kind of classes I'm really getting a lot out of. Because if I'm going to be doing this for the next 35 years, I better enjoy it.
Yep.
And if I'm just slugging my way through it, and of course there's a few of those classes that you take where, you're like, well, I think this is important for me to know and it doesn't come by me easily, but I want to learn it. For me, that was accounting and finance and those kinds of things, which I'm glad where I am today. But I'm like, if I don't love it, then why would I spend a third of my lifetime doing it, right? So
you knew. So like,
yeah,
which is like is that comforting to know that? Just come out of high school at that age and know that you have a solid idea of what you want to do.
Yeah,
it's kind of rare. Like, yeah,
and I think it's funny. I think about the idea of working in PR and being a storyteller. And that always did appeal to me. And I think back, I kind of make a joke about a TV show that I don't really remember the premise of it really well. Do you remember a show called Harriet's Magic Hats?
Vaguely.
So this girl, Harriet, and I need to go on YouTube or something and like see if how I remember it is actually how it went.
Or you just making shit up though?
Oh, yeah, right. But there was this trunk and she'd pull a hat out and she'd put the hat on, she'd magically transform and she'd be in that job for the day. And I feel like that's sometimes my life in a way. And it's fun because you get to kind of working in communications, working in PR, being a storyteller, being a writer, you get to kind of get glimpses into, just like you do, get glimpses into people's lives. You get to see how different things work. You get to see different environments. And then you go back home at the end of the day. And I think that really appealed to me.
Did you, when you're in high school, was there anything else that was grabbing your attention? Or was it, did you know that you liked writing and you liked stories? Did you have a firm idea at a young age? And the reason I'm on this is because it's so foreign to me that someone at that age can have it figured out.
I think I went a few different directions. I think the idea of design and architecture really appealed to me too. So kind of in a different direction.
Yep.
My parents were teachers, so I thought about that for a while. I really have a lot of respect for teachers and what they can do, and I thought about that for a while too. But ultimately, that's where I ended up.
That's where you go.
Yeah.
So sorry. Now we can fast forward back to where you were. So you finished university and then you traveled.
Traveled for a little while, and then ended up in Toronto. Yeah.
In a communications role with somebody?
Yeah, it was a communications role in a not-for-profit, and we were a really small team at the time, and I was really responsible for working with these universities. So it was Victoria one week and St. John's the next, and actually so I started there in 2001, and
in Toronto.
In Toronto.
That's funny. I was there the same year.
There you go. So I moved there in the middle of August of 2001. And the first thing I had to do was plan a trip to go out and see these different universities. So I'd put together this itinerary and planned it all out and arranged all these meetings. And I mean, I was 22. It was a big deal. It was a big experience. And I got on a plane. I flew to Winnipeg, which was going to be my first stop. I think this would have been just after Labor Day. I know that for sure. And I was going to be getting back around Thanksgiving. So pretty long trip. And I woke up the first day ready for my appointment, and it was September 11th, 2001.
No way.
And I turned on the TV in the hotel and saw what the world saw.
Crazy.
And I mean, needless to say, it was a super memorable day because I didn't know what to do. I showed up at the university and met up with whoever I was supposed to meet up with, but we didn't talk business.
Yeah.
We sat there and took all this in. So that was a really interesting career start. Is to land in that, and then it became a bit of planes, trains, and automobiles.
I was going to say,
yeah, because I still wanted to try and keep up with my schedule, and I was renting cars and getting on buses and friends picking me up, and
crazy.
Kind of bumped along Western Canada until the planes were flying again.
Wild.
And it was hard, but I remember thinking, okay, this is real life. This is your career. You have to figure it out. And I think I've always just had that mentality. Just figure it out. You can get through it. So it was one of those times in our generation where you'll always remember where you were.
Yeah, totally.
And I think though, as you know, those kinds of events are devastating, but you can learn something from it, how you manage that situation. So
what was it like moving to Toronto at that age? Were you totally into it because it was somebody offered you a job, or were you ready to get outside of Calgary and go adventure somewhere else?
Yeah. I really wanted to go somewhere else.
Like you were applying out of the city? Like you really wanted to go?
Yeah, I think because I had grown up here and because I chose to stay here to go to school, I really wanted to go somewhere else for a while. I knew that was important. And it was fun. I mean, Toronto, I don't know if you remember this, but it's kind of overwhelming initially. There's a lot going on. And but I was excited by that. I was excited by being in a new place and meeting new people and just figuring things out, you know, whether you're stuck in Winnipeg in 9/11 or whatever that is, you figure it out as you go, and you get to know yourself through that process too. Did
you always know you wanted to get back to Calgary?
No.
Really?
No.
So you were going there, and that could have been your forever thing? Whatever?
Could have been Barcelona, Abu Dhabi, who knows?
You're wide open to anything.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah.
So after Toronto, where was your path?
Came back, I missed the mountains, and I landed a PR job in the ski industry. So I spent a lot of time in the mountains.
Cool.
And that was a lot of fun.
Like from the outside, it sounds like a great fit.
Yeah.
Like your role, like your job matched to an industry that you're passionate about? Yeah,
it really did.
Like perfect? Did you think you were like, I'm here?
I thought this is going to be another good adventure. Yeah, and there was really good people there, and I got to spend a lot of time in the mountains, and it was very different than a Toronto job.
Yeah.
And so that was exciting too. From there, I went to Westjet, and I worked on their marketing team for a while. And that was great. Amazing culture, amazing company. Was able to get on planes and when you can, right?
Yep.
And use that benefit, which was great. And then I had a chance to move to a PR agency, which was at the time a bit of a foreign world for me. I'd worked with agencies, but I hadn't been at one.
Because you were always in-house?
In-house, yeah. And in-house, but it's funny, I always worked in places where I had to juggle a lot of things. So in Toronto, I was working with all these universities. So I had kind of 40 things to worry about in the course of a day. And then in the ski industry, there was a number of ski resorts. So again, you had a bit of a portfolio. Westjet, I had a portfolio. So that idea of kind of juggling different priorities and different people and different things happening was my comfort zone. So went agency side. It was a great experience. Our paths crossed back then. And then I was there for a long time, and it was a really rewarding experience. And then I moved to another agency, and that's when I was starting to think too about what does this look like long term? Do I want to go back and think about that entrepreneurial route? Like, what if I could create something for myself?
Did you have that? Did you have that like entrepreneurial like tendencies growing up? Was it something like lurking in your brain always, or was it just kind of, or was it moments?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's that phrase, if it is to be, it's up to me. Like I've always been that way of just rolling up my sleeves and digging in and being a part of something. And so, yeah, I think that was always there. But I'm also, people say entrepreneurs are risk takers. There's two pieces of advice that are very common advice that I always disagree with. One is the premise that entrepreneurs are risk takers. I'm actually, I would say, kind of risk adverse. Like I like to know what I'm getting into, and I think that's what drew me to entrepreneurship. I want to be able to direct my own path. The other one is if you can dream it, you can be it. And like, I don't think everybody's cut out for everything. I think it's important to work to your strengths. And then I think there's possible boundless opportunity. But not everybody can do everything.
I agree.
And you need friends and family around you to sometimes tell you that. Like, it's not your thing.
Totally. Just a quick reality check.
Yeah. So
when you were that, like, I don't know how, when I say entrepreneurial tendencies, and that's what I've had my whole life. Just whether it's from becoming a DJ and building up a brand there and getting gigs, whether it's like having a lawn mowing business when I was young, there was just always these little moments of seeing an opportunity or wanting to be in control of the money I make or the work I'm doing. Did you have those moments growing up? Like, did you have like, to decide that to open up your own agency is a big thing, and it doesn't happen overnight, obviously. I'm trying to figure out if there was like dots on the board that kind of got you there.
Well, I think, coming back to travel a little bit, I've been writing freelance travel for about 12 or 13 years on the side, just as a passion project on the side. And I think, maybe that was part of the seeds too of, going out and pitching editors and coming up with story ideas and following through and getting a story in on the deadline and those kinds of things, I think helped plant that. I think as a kid, it was often just, being willing to pitch in on stuff, whether it was, doing certain things around the house because you'll earn certain allowance. I mean, we weren't really raised around that kind of, being like, okay, go earn this money. But it was just about, if I put the effort in, there's going to be a positive result. And I think entrepreneurs at the end of the day, whatever the motivation is, whether it's financial, whether it's freedom, whether it's creating something from scratch.
Freedom isn't really
freedom.
It's not really reality.
But we're lucky, right? We're lucky to have those choices. We're lucky to be in a place to be able to make those decisions every single day.
So when you're working at those couple of places, is there anything in your head that you're like, you seeing the client side and you're like, I can do this with anybody. And then are you seeing on the business side, you're like, this is either I'm learning things or I can do it differently, not better, differently. I want more control. I want more say. Like, is your mind starting to wander?
Yeah, well, a little bit. I think I was really fortunate as I had the opportunity to work for incredible entrepreneurial women. And when you start to surround yourself with that, you start to see opportunities within yourself too. So I'm always very grateful for those opportunities that I had. And
what is it? Is it just realizing that there's more to you than you thought, or there's more?
I think that there's a different route you can take. Like you really can carve out what you want to carve out. And I wouldn't have been able to do it at 22. I wasn't ready. I think you have to be ready for it, but how so?
I'm going to grill you on this because this is super interesting to me.
Well, it's funny because some people do. Some people do dive in at 22 or 18 or whenever, and they have a go of it and they make it happen. Or
it doesn't work.
Or it takes them 12 tries. Or they leave and go work somewhere else. But to that point, it's all a journey. And I think for me, maybe part of it was the confidence factor. of I want to have enough experience under my belt that when I go out to the world to offer something, people believe me.
Did you know that you wanted to do your own thing though? So
Deep down, I think so. Yeah.
and just all the, the freedom, the control, the direction, the stability of being in control of all the
and
choices.
keeping things fresh.
Yeah.
I like having new challenges in front of me.
Sometimes chaotic, but
Sure.
it just
But making the chaos into something productive or into something organized, which is funny because there's this whole debate about entrepreneurs, are they made or are they born? I don't know.
Was
I
there
think it's
anything?
a bit of both.
Yeah, I agree. There was nothing growing up. As parents of their teachers, I'm sure they're not like preaching, go be your own boss.
They encouraged me to do anything really. I think I was always pretty independent, so maybe that's part of it too. I was always worked hard in school and was involved in stuff and like to take on 100 different things and but I think deep down it was always there for sure. Yeah.
So when you get to that point, you're kind of ready to do your own thing. What is it when you actually make it happen?
Yeah.
Does it feel like, okay, I'm here, this is what it's supposed to be? Or is it now I need to really, now I'm frightened about all this. Is it every emotion coming together or does it just feel like, okay, now's the time?
It was definitely now is the time.
Like a cool confidence, like just kind of.
Sure.
But just like, just like not cocky, not like now is the time. Now this is the way we're going.
I like to use the term humble confidence.
See, that's better than mine.
Which it sounds contradictory, but I think the idea of trying to be assured in your own experience and what you have to offer and what you can do, but doing it with humility so that, if somebody does approach you and they want to work with you, that you're not flippant about it. You're truly grateful for that opportunity. You're truly grateful to be able to make a contribution, but you're going to confidently go about and do that contribution. And I really try and live that way and run my business that way.
And how long has it been?
4 years.
And when you say that out loud, does it feel like 4 years? Does it feel like 8? Does it feel like a year?
It's weird because the last 2 years are like this weird.
Can't even count.
Yeah, no, 4 years feels really good. It feels really good to say that.
And do you, and you kind of touched on it before, but all the experiences you've had, working for other people, big budgets, big brands, big teams, did all those lessons and all the experience kind of set you up to, when you decide to do this, that you just kind of had the foundation to pull it off?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I think every experience I've had, every work environment, every project, it all leads you to the next thing. Everything is part of that journey, whether it's a good experience or the vast majority were really, really positive, great experiences. But even if something goes sideways, you're going to learn from that. You're going to take something with you. So absolutely, everything has led to this point.
Which, and once you're here, and I have no idea. Well, I know how I feel, but like calm, like because some people from the outside, when they're looking in and they hear about somebody starting a business, like, wow, that's a big risk. Like you said, that's a big, are you sure? Or is like, but once you're here and you've had all this experience behind you, once you're there, you're like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Yes. But as you don't really stop.
Yeah.
You don't stop. And I think that's always been really valuable advice that I've taken from other entrepreneurs, is that idea of it's okay to stop once in a while and look in the rearview mirror, look at where you've come, stop and figure out where do you want to go next. And it's kind of funny because in my business, and it's funny how it links back. We've been talking a lot about travel too, but in my logo, there's a yellow arrow. And I think of our work that we do as being wayfinders. And the yellow arrow, which makes for a cool logo, actually has a good story attached to it, which to me, it's funny, I look back and I'm like, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that experience with the yellow arrow to have been so ingrained in me all these years forward. And so the story with the yellow arrow is that when I turned 30, I decided to walk partway across Spain with a good friend of mine to mark our 30th. And it's a trail called the Camino De Santiago, and it runs all the way across Spain. And it's centuries old. It's Catholic roots. I'm not Catholic, but
Like in the mountains, kind of off the main roads, and just
all the way across the
Okay.
Pyrenees, through the plains, up to the northwest corner. So we couldn't get a whole lot of time off work, but we could take a little bit of time off. So we walked a chunk of it. So we walked about 270 kilometers.
no way.
Yeah,
Over how long?
10 days.
No way.
Yeah,
That's a long.
it's a lot. I like walking. That's what I discovered through all this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does that? How does it even look like? You just walk. You just have all your essentials in a backpack, and
Yeah.
you go for a walk.
Yeah, you go for a walk. You just keep walking, and the whole trail is lined by the scallop shell is kind of the symbol of the trail, and but there's also yellow arrows. So you get up in the morning, you have your cafe con leche and your baguette, and you just start looking for yellow arrows, and you just that's your only job.
Crazy.
You keep following these yellow arrows, and that was really comforting. Like to just say, this is all I have to do today. I have to keep myself healthy, keep my feet healthy, and find the yellow arrows. And then at the end of the day, I'll have a really good meal, some red wine, meet some people, travelers, and have a really, really, really good sleep because I've walked 25 kilometers today.
Crazy.
So we hiked a part of the whole trail is close to 800K. And I will go back and I'll do
You
the
gonna
whole
do it
thing. Oh, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. But we got up and walked every day and had really good conversations, and just, you're walking for 10 hours, and sometimes we'd walk alone. Sometimes we'd walk with each other. Sometimes we'd walk with other people. And it was a really, really enriching experience for me. And so I got back and get back into normal life. And you're like, where's my yellow arrows? Like, that was so easy. I just was pointed in the right direction the whole time. And I would kind of think for a while after that, I'm like, man, if I could just have little yellow arrows, like, tell me where the parking spot is in the parking lot, or tell me what to order on the menu. Like, this life would be so easy. When I started my company working in PR communications, I was thinking about what my role would be for our clients. And I thought, I kind of want to be their yellow arrow when it comes to their business. And so I made sure the yellow arrow was part of our brand. And we refer to ourselves as wayfinders.
Interesting.
And so that idea of, the idea too of like an arrow can be a weapon, or it can serve as a guide.
Yep.
And it can be a really great and noble thing. So there you go. Travel got tied into everything.
So how long, what year did you do the walk, and then how many years later did you start your business?
10 years between the two.
And that arrow, did that yellow, was it always on your mind? Did you forget about the arrow for a while and then come
I don't
back? It was
think
just
I did.
always there? But you
I
knew
don't
right
think
away
I
when you
did.
started your company,
Yeah.
the arrow was going to be
First
part
thing
of
I
it?
did. Yeah, it was the
No
first thing I
way.
did. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you find that all the companies you work with, do they understand this about you? Do you feel like you're attracting like-minded people into your sphere?
I think so. I like telling the story of the yellow arrow because I think it also gives people a chance to get to know me. This idea of
Because traveling is a thing.
Traveling is a thing, and trying to be meaningful and intentional with what I do. So it's it's part of our story that we tell when we're starting to work with clients. We have great clients. I feel really lucky that way. I think we really try and attract people who are trying to be authentic storytellers and do meaningful things and make a difference. And they love what our clients love what they do with the organizations they work for. So we try and find those common values together.
And how do you find those people?
Oh, it's been a lot of referrals, word of mouth, network.
Yep.
People maybe that I knew 15 years ago who come back, or someone asked somebody else. And I mean, that's the great thing about Calgary.
Yeah.
Is it's that kind of community.
Do you think that works for everybody? Do you think this city actually that everyone can say that? Or do you think
No.
it? Why
Well, I think
is
too,
that?
if somebody has a bad experience, they tell other people about
Yep.
a bad experience too. So I think you have to be willing to, serve others too. I think by sharing knowledge or sharing expertise or volunteering your time, being like a whole person and trying to contribute to the community and not just take from it is a really important part of being a good citizen, a good business person in general.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you think? And the reason I'm asking, because it's the whole referral thing is kind of, it's at the root of every business, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it matters how big you get. It's just the referral program is kind of what keeps things going.
Yeah.
You know, when you start your own thing, there's a bunch of people already doing what you're doing. You do it differently because it's got your touch on it, which is great. But the idea of relying on your network to kind of get things going, and then they kind of get the referral machine going, it just doesn't happen for everybody.
Yeah.
And is it, you know, to your point, you're involved in the community. Do you think that's what it is? Is it like, it's tough to articulate what it is that actually drives all of that.
Yeah, I think it is. It's a tough question, and I'm very grateful for having a network and a community around me and people that wanted to see me thrive and be successful, just like I want to see them thrive and be successful. So I think it has to go both ways.
Did you know over all these years being in the city that you were actually, you know, as you were kind of going through life, making good decisions and building something, that one day you could tap into it?
I don't know if I ever really knew that.
No, but
sometimes as starting a business, sometimes you need to have a balance of knowing and also in some ways better not knowing. You know, even you know, you look at the pandemic. In a way, I'm kind of glad we didn't know 2 years ago what we were getting into, right? Because that would have been a lot to think about.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody had said, "Oh yeah, 2 years from now, this is what it's going to be like." I think that would have been a lot. You want to write your future, but you don't want to necessarily know it in advance.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think sometimes I like to say, like, it's just, if you're a good person and you kind of roll a specific way, it seems like you just attract the right people.
Yeah. I think it's energy, right?
Yeah.
You have to put have the energy within you, emanating from you. And I think it's something people can cultivate. Like, are you putting out an energy that shows that you have good intention and that you truly believe in other people being successful and lifting others up, and that will all come back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Did you have a plan when you started your business? Did you know like when you decided to do it, was it just like not a short term, like the moment was presenting itself, you're like, I'm going to go this way? Did you have a long-term plan right away? Did you think that I'm going to start my own thing and I'm going to run this thing for 20 years? Or were you
there is no Surlocks bound business plan document in my filing cabinet.
So moment in time, we're going to go this way, and
moment in time, knew the way I was going to go, and failure was not going to be an outcome.
Why is that? How do you people can think that, right?
Yeah.
But what is it? Is it internal pressure? Or was there something lurking, like a mortgage payment that you're like, I need to...
Both. Yeah, for sure. Both. Yeah. Own my own home. And I think just making sure that I was set up for success as much as I could. Right. And I think that you can prepare for it, but also the stars have to align a little bit too. You know, there's I'm sure people out there that launched a business the week before the pandemic hit.
For sure.
And there can be tough timing, or there can be economic challenges, or things can happen. So I think there's for sure some luck that happens, but ultimately I had an idea of what I was going to do, how I was going to operate, how I was going to organize myself, how I was going to try and attract business. And I kind of had that laid out, but I didn't have a 5-year plan necessarily.
Is it?
And I don't know if that was good or not.
It was your natural tendency to go that way, right? Like,
yeah,
you just didn't need it. didn't see the value in doing that?
Maybe just wasn't sure. I kind of looked at it the first 3 years. I looked at the business a year at a time. So I'd say, okay, what do I want to do in the next year? What does that look like? What does success look like? How do I measure it? How will I know if I've reached that point?
Yep.
And I would have 6 or 7 indicators. And then I'd get to the next year, and then I'd, turn the page and start over.
Mm-hmm.
And then about the 3-year mark, so about a year ago, is when I started working with other entrepreneurs as part of kind of a mentorship group. And that's where I've started to dig in and start to think a little bit longer term and more into that 3-year planning now that I've got a few years under the belt. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure time is flying by. Like
it does. Yeah. 4
years must be a blink right now for you.
Yeah.
Do you know where you want to take this thing now? Do you have is it all working right now? Like, is there anything that's, is there something like out there that you're,
there's a lot of things that are going really well.
Yeah.
We've got great clients. It's an amazing team that I have now, which I didn't have at day one. And that kind of grew and evolved. And there's people involved on the team that I'm just so grateful for, that they believe in what we're trying to create, and they believe in doing great work and doing right by our clients. And that's not easy to find either.
How'd that happen? Did they find you? Did you find them?
A little bit of both. Yeah. Yeah. Again, right place, right time, right person. So it's worked out really well that way. And everybody really gels with each other too, which is really important.
Yep.
So I think, again, you have to kind of be willing to plan things out, have an idea of what a goal looks like, but then also be a bit flexible with how you get there.
It's so crazy. You said it earlier, that's how you kind of almost talked about traveling. And it's just, it's almost a different way. You just said it 2 different ways. One was traveling, and then you related almost the exact same thing back to the business side.
Well, and I think friends know this in me too, but I'll have a plan A, but there's always a plan B and plan C, plan D in the back of my head. And plan A is going to be the way we're going to go. But if something goes sideways, that's okay. Plan B is right there. And it might be just as good. And maybe it offers something that plan A didn't have.
Yep.
And if that doesn't work out, okay, we go to plan C. And that's all right, because it might take us 3 times as long, but we get to do X, Y, Z along the way. So you're right, similar to traveling. But I think that's part of how you keep moving forward, and you look back, like the yellow arrow, right?
Yep.
I got off track. I couldn't find the yellow arrow for an hour. I was frustrated. I was annoyed. I knew I was going the wrong direction. Oh, but we found this great little patio and sat and had a snack and had a drink and talked to a local, and never would have had that experience if we just stayed with the yellow arrow the whole time, right? So I think it's that idea of being content where you are, but remembering you have to pick up your backpack and keep going, right? You can't just sit there forever.
Yeah.
You'll get bored.
Susie, as you were saying, I was like, oh, it's like, anyways, I was connecting dots that maybe weren't there, but as far as the team, when the team is growing, is it caught you off guard at all? Or does it feel like it's growing at the perfect pace right now? Are you surprised?
Part of the fun is getting surprised and getting caught off guard sometimes. Most often in really good ways, where maybe a client I've cultivated and worked with, and then suddenly, the team's working on something and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we're doing this, this, and this, and don't worry, we've got it covered. And you're like, oh, this is great. Good job. Keep going.
Yeah.
So when you really start to see the team being empowered, and I love when the team comes up with way better ideas than I could come up with. That feels amazing too. And you see them really start to do things in their own way.
The reason I'm asking, because the hiring thing is really interesting to me too, just like how it all grows and what it actually looks like. But the idea of people finding you, that want to work for you, have heard about you, it just feels like that's if you can find that, if you can hire in that situation, it seems like a much better spot than going hunting for somebody.
Oh yeah, that's a great spot to be in. And I think, ultimately it has to be the right fit though, right? You have to find people that, and I always say to other people too, if they're looking to start a business, figure out what you stand for, figure out what success looks like, figure out what you value, and make sure you articulate that, and make sure you bring on people who feel the same way about those core things. You don't have to agree about everything.
Yep.
And in some ways you want to hire people that do think a bit differently than you. But at the end of the day, if you're not aligned on what success looks like and what you value, it's not going to work. And that's okay, because it's not for everybody.
Yep.
But you have to be able to kind of clearly identify that, articulate it, and then find the people that believe in the same thing you do.
So it's a different, more like intuition, like asking the right questions to find the right people.
Yeah, there's. I came across an article a long time ago, and it had questions to hire entrepreneurial-minded employees, and it was really good, interesting interview questions. Like where it's tell me a story about when this happened. Not just are you good at this or can you do that, which are important too. You need to have base skills, but those kinds of questions I think are really important. Just trying to get to understand the person, and I always, as a leader, try and figure out what motivates people, not to use it to my own benefit, but so that I can serve them better. Either serve them better as a client, serve them better as a team member. We all want to feel motivated, right? So if we're tapped into people who understand what makes us get out of bed every morning, chances are we're going to work pretty well together.
It just works. Smoothly.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to me just to hear your story, just because we met so long ago. And we both kind of have like a similar background-ish, where we worked for companies for years, kind of got a foundation, learned a bunch of things, and then that itch to do our own thing kind of creeps up.
Yeah.
Do you think that itch, it still occupies brain space in my head? What is it? Like, what is that thing that just makes you decide? It's not overnight. It's like,
no.
For me, it was years of like thinking about the internal debate of like, how do I find clients? How do I cover mortgage?
Yeah. It does take a lot, and I think it's different things for different people. We've talked about people that are adventurers, and they have an itch they have to scratch, and for some people, for them it is maybe serving with a company for 30 years. That's important to them. It's important to have that legacy of that contribution. I think for going out on your own, you have to overcome. You have a lot of internal conversations and debates before you do it. All those conversations in your own head that nobody else hears, where you work through stuff, right? You work through, what if this doesn't work out, right? What's plan B? What's plan C? What's plan D? What if this is way harder than I thought? Then you have to come, no, it's okay. I got this. I can do this, right? You have to give yourself the pep talk. Having external coaches, and so you're not always talking to yourself, is also really important. Having those external coaches and mentors is important, but even I was always very loyal where I worked, and I had to get it. Well, am I letting someone down by doing my own thing? Are they going to be disappointed? Okay. How do I deal with that? How do I get over that? What if I don't like the work? Right? What are all the sides of the business that I know I'm going to need to figure out that I haven't thought about yet? How do I figure that out? And you do figure it out. It's amazing. You do just figure it out.
Where did you have all these internal debates, conversations? In the mountains, walking?
I have a dog.
Sleeping.
So my dog, we walk a lot. My dog loves, I love getting out. For me, moving meditation is really important. So whether it's running, walking, yoga, jumping in the pool, just swimming laps. That's where I do all my thinking.
And do you have structure around that? Do you like to do these things first thing in the morning? Do you just like to get them in at some point in the day? Like, I
want to be the first thing in the morning person.
But what?
Well, but actually mornings, I read in the mornings.
Yep.
I walk the dog in the mornings.
Yep.
So I have to, I can be up and at 'em early, but I have tried to get into a bit slower mornings because I know when my day takes off, it goes.
Going.
And so when I tried to do a big workout first thing in the morning, it was kind of going against my grain a little bit. But I will, I'll at least get out and walk a couple kilometers before the sun's up. So I guess that counts for something.
So
And the dog is happy.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So oftentimes, the bigger workout comes like at the end of the day, the end of the work day. And it's maybe where I kind of unleash the rest of my energy. Right. So that it's hard, but it's actually okay. And it's what works for me. But it's funny, like I can, if I'm ruminating over something, something's challenging me, it's amazing. Even if you just get up, a lot of us working from home right now, walk around the block, just walk around the block.
Yeah. What'd you call it? Motion, what? Meditation?
Moving meditation.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I love, excuse me, I was like,
Yeah.
And everything you work through a lot of things?
Or you choose, or you don't. You just say, okay, I'm stuck on this thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it here and I'm going to go walk around the block, grab the dog, put the leash on and not think about it necessarily, not actively think about it.
What is it?
And something will just click. And that's usually when it comes back to you. So I think, sometimes I'll go and have that intention of like, I'm going to solve this problem, or I'm going to weigh the pros and cons, or I'm going to say, I'm leaving this on the desk and I'm going for a walk. And then that's
what happened.
Yeah, that 10-minute walk around the block solves in a way better way what me aggravated with a piece of paper would have done in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's hard to learn that, right? I think for one thing, I've always felt like when I was younger, more is more, right? Take on more, add it to my plate, take it on, prioritize it, get after it, which is a good way to be. But now I'm also learning, sometimes the hard way, the efficiencies of slowing down. When you do slow down, you see solutions that wouldn't have come your way. And that takes time and wisdom and all the things that we always said for years didn't matter. And you're like, yeah, those are important things.
The motion thing, a few people have brought that up about like just being in motion and just the clarity it brings. And I've never...
Well, you think of how unnatural and awful it is for us to sit all day. Yeah. It's not in our being. We do it. We do it because we have to. But it's not how our bodies perform best.
Yep.
You think about, you just think about the idea of getting out and blood circulating and breathing and smelling fresh air and being in nature if you can be. How could that work against you?
I think it's just that extra effort to pull it off, though.
Yeah. Well, especially if it's like minus 30 out, that's tricky.
But then, the hack is whether if the gyms are open, you can get on a machine and do something.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you find your energy sways day to day, week to week? If some weeks it is minus 30 and getting outside or getting in motion isn't as easy?
Oh,
do you
for
feel
sure.
it affects you?
It 100% affects me.
And do you now know it? Do you know it well enough that you know what the quick solution is? Is just to get out and do something?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is freeing because
not recently, in the last few years, I've kind of figured this out that I need to start my day with exercise. Yeah. If I don't do it, I get moody. Well, and there was, I can't source this. I heard it or read it somewhere recently. So kudos to whoever initially figured this out, but there was research behind it that of a workout, the first 4 minutes, like your body physically will be like, oh, no, don't do this. Don't do this. You don't want to do this. And then something happens at the 4-minute mark where you find your flow. Yep. And so I think sometimes when it, whether it's cold out or, I left it too late tonight and now it's 7:30 and I haven't done my thing. And I just think you just have to do just commit to the first 4 minutes. Cause I know after that mark, you probably know that if you go running, right? Yep. The first 4 or 5 minutes,
torture.
Awful. And then you're like, okay, I'm good. I'm fine. Keep going. And I think that goes for a lot of things, actually. You know, even if you're trying to, you know, for me, if I'm trying to write something.
You can? So if you know, the first 4 minutes feels like a writer's block, you think you can just keep
because
working through it?
for me, if I'm writing something, I'll often procrastinate on it because it is just that, how do I get started? And I'll set the timer. I'll say, okay, spend 4 minutes on this. Get something down.
Crazy.
And sometimes, you know, sometimes you get 3 unworkable headlines in 4 minutes. Sometimes you'll crank out 150 words, a first draft. And you're like, okay, now I'm gonna step away for a minute. And it, you know, then you go and make a cup of coffee or something, and you feel yourself. You're like, I can't wait to get back there working on it. It's started. I got it started. I'm gonna go back and start working on it right now. So for me, whenever there's a big project or something that's going to be really challenging, you know, maybe it's not always. Sometimes it's like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But I'll just set a small increment of time and say, just do this amount. Just start there and see what happens. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think it is fascinating. You know, part of this show is just like to have a bunch of characters, you know, in all sorts of, whether it's artists, entrepreneurs, or athletes, and just listening to what makes them tick a little bit.
Yeah.
And this motion thing has come up a few times.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting, because I don't think everybody either puts value against that or understands it, but as soon as you said that, I was like, there's another one. It just fits. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something to that, because I think we sometimes, maybe we're a bit guilty. We compartmentalize our days too, where it's like, okay, now it's time to work out. Okay, now it's time to work, and now it's time to rest. But moving can be restful in a way.
Oh yeah, totally.
You know, I mean, maybe not if you're cranking out half marathon or something, but if you there, you know, again, kind of coming back to the idea of energy, where doing that 10-minute walk or that 20-minute walk, or saying, okay, I'm going to go out in nature for an hour, 100% you're coming back more energized.
Yeah, for sure. More efficient, more productive.
And it's figuring out what works for you, you know, like I think everybody's a little bit different. For me, it's always been, getting moving, getting going. That's where the creative ideas happen. That's where I re-energize myself. That's where I kind of re-ground myself. If it's been, you know, the phone's ringing off the hook and there's 6 Zoom calls today and something comes up and somebody has an emergency, okay, I'm going to take 10 minutes here because I got to figure out my next move. So
interesting. It makes so much sense to me, but I've never given it a lot of thought.
Yeah.
I didn't know why it feels so good.
Right.
You know, the more people that start explaining how they value it, then I'm like, oh yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah.
I understand why I need to do these things.
Yeah. And you have to make that time for it. And I'm, you know, I'm guilty of this too sometimes, but where, okay, so you're willing to block an hour for this Zoom call, potentially with someone you've never even met before who wants to hear about your business.
Yeah.
But the, you know, the hour workout, oh, well, if that doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And I think as an entrepreneur, we have to hold ourselves accountable more, which is why too, I think for me, having these a little bit, you know, slower moving mornings kind of lets me ramp up the day because I don't feel like I didn't get that time to do a little bit of yoga and to go for a walk and to read 20, 30 pages of whatever it is I'm reading at the time.
Yeah.
Those are all things that are really important to me that I know I need to do to be my best for other people. So those are kind of non-negotiables.
Yeah.
And if you do that at 6:30 in the morning, usually they're not getting interrupted either.
Sure.
It would take a pretty big, you know, something to kind of throw that off the rails. So.
Super cool.
Yeah.
I know you're busy, so I want to be cognizant of your time. The only question I ask is when I say Calgary, where does your head go?
I think of the word home naturally. I think that having been raised here and having family here around me and friends I grew up with here, there's it's definitely where I feel grounded. And my pursuits have taken me around the world and taken me to different places. And it's a place I'm proud to call home.
Yep.
I think that we have really interesting communities here. I think we have a balance between kind of this city feel, but to the idea of motion and nature. One thing that I love about Calgary is you can drive 20 minutes out of the city and not be surrounded by a soul. And I think that having that accessibility to nature, accessibility to adventure with the mountains, having a great business community that cares about each other, and having the vibrancy of a city and having people that support you and lift you up that you grew up with, I think that's such a privilege and amazing opportunity. And yeah, it's home.
Yeah, that's my word too.
Yeah.
It's hard to, it's everything.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
This is really cool to kind of, I'm assuming in your job, you kind of, the situation is kind of reversed, right?
I know, the tables are totally turned today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that, the guest right before you, he has a couple of podcasts. So just to have him on the other side too is
flip the coin.
It's an interesting spot to be.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So thanks again for taking the time.
Thank you.